You're searching for a new game to play on your tablet. Minecraft isn't an option since it's $7. And you're not old enough to play Call of Duty, according to your parents. So you continue scrolling, until you eventually strike gold. Pixel Gun 3D. It's everything a kid could want at the time. And it's free. You install it not knowing the lifelong memories you're gonna make in this game. (2013), the year of Doge, Vine, the Harlem Shake, Call of Duty, and Minecraft. The success of these two games could be greatly attributed to the staple aspects each one had. Call of Duty for its innovative and trend-setting FPS gameplay, and Minecraft standing out with its pixelated graphics, in a time when developers strive to push hardware to their graphical limits. Alex Krasnov took note of this. At just 14 years old, he wanted to get involved. You might be thinking, this sounds crazy. A 14-year-old created a multi-million-dollar mobile game? That's cause it is, and it's not true. Alex Krasnov didn't create Pixel Gun 3D. Alex Krasnov didn't work on Pixel Gun 3D. Alex doesn't even exist. And once you realize that, the humble origin story everyone believed completely falls apart. Originally, I too believed Alex was the original creator. I mean, he's listed everywhere as the creator. As I tried to dig up more information regarding his involvement with the Pixel Gun game, I was met with nothing. Well, minus this dude. Pixel Gun 3D was originally published under the name Alex Krasnov. However, the company that owns Pixel Gun 3D, Cubit Games, has confirmed that Alex Krasnov doesn't exist. In reality, Pixel Gun wasn't made by just one person, but by a small, largely anonymous team. However, one name does appear a lot. Anton Sinelnikov, who co-founded Cubit Games, and has been involved with the development of Pixel Gun throughout the years. While this game is his main focus now, he was involved in a lot of different mobile games. The more I dug up about this guy, the more I realized Pixel Gun wasn't his first time in the mobile game ripoff market. And it wouldn't be ridiculous to say that he would become infamous within the mobile app development community, just based off some articles. As we see the past works of Cubit Games, it provides a lot of context as to how Pixel Gun came to be and what the company's goal was, with some examples being Last Craft Survival, Mine Run 3D, which was just Subway Surfers with Minecraft-styled graphics. With a portfolio of games exclusively centered around knockoffs of already successful games, it becomes evident that passion wasn't exactly the main motivation for them. The game was technically released in 2012, but I'm not going to count that, since the game shared the same name, but it was more so just the concept of what was to come. Not to mention that it was 99 cents, and 99 cents for some PNGs on your screen has gotta be criminal. I forgot to mention that content surrounding this version of Pixel Gun is lost media. Like, there is literally only one screenshot, so this is like the only media surrounding the existence of this version. If you have it installed on an old device or something, reach out to the people on Reddit, maybe get it dumped or something, because it is lost media. Alright, whatever, just go back to the video, man. Let's start at the actual beginning of the game, 2013. The game was much more oriented towards the round-based zombies arcade style, since local multiplayer was the only option for a while. Throughout 2013, the game remained extremely bare bones, with some of the only weapons being the simple shotgun, pixel gun, minor weapon with an E, and wizard wand. The game modes consisted of survival, an arcade-style zombies mode, where you spawned on a random map with 30 different monsters you had to kill, with the player being rewarded with 1 coin at the end of each wave. A deathmatch, a free-for-all with a threshold of how many kills you needed to be deemed the winner. And finally, co-op. It was just the same as survival with another player. Despite having 3 core modes at this time, one would stand out from the rest, building the foundation for the game as a whole. The deathmatch mode made the demand for online multiplayer and multiplayer game modes extremely clear. Version 4.0 finally replaced the round-based survival mode with the campaign storyline. The campaign still played out the same as the original survival, as far as the waves and limited amount of monsters. However, with the addition of stars as well as levels within each world, it created a timeline and gave players an incentive to not only complete the levels, but perform well enough to get a 3-star rating in each, with the ability to unlock different weapons at the end of certain levels. The game was still in its pretty early stages of development and began to see some strong growth, which meant a lot of assets from previous versions did not stay in the game too long, since they were heavily influenced by Minecraft or just completely copied, such as the doors on the city map, the creeper in the creeper's scythe, or the skin editor that literally says for Minecraft. It's pretty obvious the developers still weren't sure what direction to take the game at the time. Pretty soon that question would be answered. These 2 years would prove to be the most vital years for the future of the game. The game began developing a unique style with gameplay exclusive to Pixelgun. After the launch of multiplayer and the newfound demand for multiplayer, the focus heavily shifted towards the online aspect. This decision is important, since prior to this decision, time and effort were scattered in an attempt to find what worked. Now, more time and money would be allocated to developing the online aspect. In March of 2014, the 6.0 update was officially released, which would add a fan-favorite game mode, flag capture. This game mode was nothing special at all. It was a generic capture the flag mode, which is arguably what players loved the most about this era, the simplicity. This new addition was only the beginning of a large variety of game modes to come. Players loved this new shift in focus, since new content and game modes made each update more and more anticipated. Twenty 2014 would be the beginning of the sniper meta, with the prototype absolutely dominating. Despite the prototype introducing the ability to shoot enemies through the wall with the wall break feature, the weapons were still pretty minimal, which kept the gameplay slower paced, incentivizing well-timed shots and precision. The 2014 to 2016 period would become the standard for Pixelgun 3D, the version of the game most players remember. Moving into 2015, the sandbox mode was unveiled, which was questionable, and is definitely the cause for some underlying trauma for some people. Regardless, for a majority of 2015, gameplay would still favor snipers over any other weapon, with a dedicated category being added for snipers eventually, since snipers were just kinda thrown into the special category. In an attempt to balance the gap, the developers would introduce newer and stronger weapons for the other categories, such as the Golden Friend, Exterminator, and Laser Bow, which aided in balancing the dominance snipers had at the time, but the anti-hero rifle was also added this year, which at this time gives the sniper category 2 insanely overpowered weapons. All of these weapons still rewarded players for precision, even with the obvious attempt to bridge the gap between snipers and every other weapon. Finally, in 2016, we were met with the dual game mode, alongside the Pet Dragon and Laser Bouncer. These weapons came with a pretty hefty price tag for the time. This would be the beginning and definitely not the end of the pay-to-win accusations. The weapons from this 2-year period would become iconic. To say these weapons were just influential is an understatement. This era marked Pixelgun's gameplay peak, where skill mattered more than how much you spent. From 2014 to 2016, Pixelgun had a lot of momentum growth-wise. A factor could be the rising popularity of Minecraft, but the YouTube community played a huge role, if not the biggest role in contributing to the rise of the game. Channels like FGTV, Exotic Gaming, Esoteric Inc., Sin, and Los Gaming, as the team had minimal contact with the community and frankly just failed to acknowledge the supporters that made the game what it was. Which is crazy considering the advertising that came from the official company was not only inconsistent, but extremely minimal. Only recently has Cubic Games focused more on marketing and growing the game, since they realized the cult-like following they once had is now gone, and they would no longer do the job for them. The ads now are just AI slop. And nostalgia baiting in an embarrassingly blatant attempt to revive the old fanbase.
Remember the childhood memory Pixelgun 3D game? This fast-paced pixel shooting game is full of action, humor, and creativity.
I know it just seems like I'm kind of dogging on the company right now, and that's because I am. 2016 to 2018. These 2 years would truly be the beginning of the end, with more microtransactions than ever. This era would introduce lotteries, weapon upgrades, and more gadgets, as well as more pets. Pets weren't the worst addition in my opinion, and I think they're pretty unique for Pixel Gun, but that doesn't really matter since they just used it as an excuse to put more in-app purchases, which would only contribute to the already existing pay-to-win accusations. The overhaul of new weapons, pets, gadgets, and abilities caused the gameplay to move from precision-based to spam-based. The 3-cat spam not only became the new meta, but a staple of Pixel Gun. The 3-cat spam consisted of the player rapidly switching between 3 different weapon categories after each shot, most commonly the primary, backup, and sniper categories. And this strategy was fun for seasoned players. Although this new meta was spamming, it had a pretty large learning curve since the player not only had to focus on rapidly switching weapons, but timing and aiming the shots. The dev team knew they had to nerf this meta, since the learning curve was extremely overwhelming for the newer and younger player base. However, the way they went about it would only accelerate the declining state the game was in already. Weapons that essentially had training wheels were the solution the team agreed upon. Weapons that did large amounts of damage extremely quickly, making it nearly impossible to counter, as well as weapons that had homing bullets, which would literally lock onto the target. These 2 years would be bittersweet since this era also brought us some fun minigames like Block Crash, a spleef-like game mode where players use their weapons to destroy blocks to cause the enemies to fall to the layer below, with the last layer being lava. Parkour Challenge and Extreme Run were also added alongside, with Parkour Challenge being a parkour challenge, and Extreme Run just being an endless run where you navigate through obstacles without dying. These 3 game modes were really simple, but it doesn't take away from the fact that they were really fun to play. And they also provided a new way for players to earn XP, coins, and keys, especially for those who played casually and not like their life depended on it. 2018 to 2020. This was a really weird era for the game, since the shift in focus from campaign to multiplayer meant the campaign was neglected up until now. It pretty much acted as a time capsule within the game, due to how little it was updated, with the visuals and campaign remaining the same while the rest of the game changed. Finally, in 2019, the campaign mode had a major update, adding the chapter Virtual Worlds. It felt really repetitive, and it was clear that they only did this update to stop the players from complaining about the lack of new content. And mind you, the last major update adding a new chapter into the campaign was all the way back in 2015, meaning there were only 3 major updates for the campaign released up until this point since 2013. 2018 and 2019 still had small aspects of the game that felt like the original Pixel Gun. The trend hopping and greed-driven updates began to be a regular occurrence, starting with the Battle Royale update in 2018, as Fortnite was blowing up and seemingly with no sign of stopping. Pixel Gun released their own spin on the Battle Royale style, which was, to say the least, hilariously bad. During 2019 and 2020, they stripped the game of any remnants of what it used to be, meaning it was more pay to win than ever, with grinding no longer being viable, and upon opening the game, you were bombarded with a million pop-ups. And the utilization of the most amateur and bottom of the barrel marketing tactics. If I had $1 for every time they used the term limited time or last chance, I would actually just have enough to buy Pixel Gun myself. At this point, every update was uneventful, and it was clear that the only updates the game would receive now were to add new purchasable content. That is bad enough in itself, but to make matters worse, the weapons released were mostly reskins, like the anti-champion rifle, which was just a reskin of the anti-hero rifle, and the necklace of the Ice King, which was just a reskin of the Ghost Lantern. We also saw the same maps get removed and reintroduced, being labeled as new when they were also just reskins, like the Back Rooms, just being a reskin of Classic Pool, and Terrifying Resort, which was just Paradise Resort but dark. This formula was repeated over and over again. These 2 years really showed that the developers no longer cared about putting out high quality content. Since 2020, the game has had updates, but not major ones whatsoever. Innovation has plateaued while the active player count continues to decline. In October of 2025, the OG Pixel Gun 3D season released. I mean, the concept of an OG update in itself is a sign that the game is in a horrible state. But one look at the official patch notes shows it was just another attempt to undo the damage that has already been done. The last 5 years of updates are only regarding in-game purchases, such as new weapons, new items, and new battle pass content, not to mention the heavy use of AI-generated content inside and outside of the game. Playing Pixel Gun as a kid will forever be an unmatched feeling, and unfortunately a feeling we will never experience again. While the game then and now might share the same name, they are two completely different games. The initial success was a result of a team that once prioritized player experience. The golden age of Pixel Gun was a direct result of this structure. As I scrubbed through old videos and played old versions of Pixel Gun for this video, I came to realize that the reason so many people miss the older versions of this game isn't just because of nostalgia. You were once rewarded for adapting to new metas, learning mechanics, and grinding daily. Today's Pixel Gun has completely killed those key elements. The fixation on monetization not only did irreversible damage to the image of Cubic Games, but also to the game itself. Pixel Gun still exists, but the Pixel Gun we loved has long been gone. No matter how many desperate attempts at nostalgia bait ads they release, the game will never return to what it once was. This video was about one of my favorite childhood games. It's a game that I and so many other people grew up playing and loved. If you enjoyed this video at any point, a like would be greatly appreciated. And if you enjoy this type of high quality content, subscribe to get more like this in your feed. And share this video with someone who also played Pixel Gun, and let's see if they also feel the same way.